Douglas Murray has finally brought the shenanigans of the argument between Israel and Palestinian war to a head. Why is so much of society focused on the Palestinian side of the argument and propaganda like gays for Palestine and just getting people who have no idea what they're talking about fired up against Israel? It just is totally insane. It's just like this whole argument on, do we want to have government waste going overseas and us spending tens of millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars, debating whether or not to ship illegal immigrants and terrorists out of our country who are not U.S. citizens, but yet we pretend and treat them like they're U.S. citizens and spend money and media time constantly talking about it. It's this whole idea of a false argument, where if you actually had the facts in front of you, the vast majority of the population, 80, 90%, would agree with one side, but we give the side that is arguing insanity all the time to talk about it and to lie about it and to try to make it like it's some sort of 50-50 argument.
Joe Rogan has been humbled. Commentator and author Douglas Murray appeared on the #1 podcast in the world, The Joe Rogan Experience, where he spectacularly called out Joe Rogan for giving more airtime to anti-Israel guests since the October 7, 2023 Hamas terror attack on Israel.
Since the war in Israel began, and since the war in Ukraine began, you've had quite a lot of people who are very against both in different ways.
Yes.
Do you think you've had enough people on who are supportive of either war?
I don't know that word enough, if that's a good word.
Let's say enough people who are on the side of Israel instead of wild critics of Israel.
Well, I've had a few. I mean, I believe God Sad is on the side of Israel.
For sure.
Jordan is on the side of Israel.
Yeah.
I mean, the point is he has to think hard about who he's had on the show pro-Israel, because it's very popular. It's in all the media. Just everyone's constantly having someone arguing on the pro-Palestinian side. Very, very skewed. And it's great that it's getting called out on it. And I think it's good for Joe to think about it. Like, yeah, maybe let's get some more, equalization for people to argue on what's actually going on and what's happening.
You had Mike Baker, Coleman
yeah.
Hughes.
Yeah.
Coleman did it for like 20 minutes, so it wasn't why he was here.
No. I mean, none of them. And none of them is why they're here. You know? It's a good question.
Do you think you've tilted one way?
Me personally?
No, just with the guests you've had.
The guests? Yeah, probably more tilted towards the idea that perhaps the way they've done it is barbaric.
Mm-hmm. But why do you think that is, just out of interest? I'm just interested in your selection of guests, because you're like the world's #1 podcast.
And the narrative of the Israelis being barbaric is such a false argument. I've watched a few documentaries before and after October, before the conflict, and it's kind of like the whole race issue in the U.S. It's like people are afraid to talk about what's happened in the past. The Israelis have done a lot and given a lot trying to resolve a lot of the issues, and basically have been attacked, spit in their face. It's a lose-lose for them no matter what the situation. And so no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to talk about, it's this whole, I can be as horrible as I want to cause a war, and then once the war starts, I'm going to cry and say, "Oh no, woe is me." This isn't war. I'm a victim. The whole narrative we've been hearing.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think about it that way. I just think I'd like to talk to this person.
But can I just... Sorry, it's your show, but
Sure.
If you're going to interview historians of the conflict, or historians in general, why would you get somebody like Ian Carroll or...
Yeah, but...
Online commentators applauded Douglas Murray for his courage to go where no one has gone before, with this person saying, "Douglas Murray does what few men alive would dare. He calls out Joe Rogan in his own studio." This person agrees, saying Joe Rogan is finally getting the criticism he deserves. Douglas Murray should be running the world. Murray...
Hey guys, obviously on X, this has been bashing Joe Rogan. I think that's also not fair. I think Rogan has been following in the footsteps of the media and the protests and the news coverage, um, because obviously, if all the propaganda and the money and these non-government agencies that are pumping money into this, which by the way, the the universities that were vandalized, all that was paid for by George and Alexander Soros's companies. All that money's been traced. So you have people stoking the fire, and so these proposed experts are oftentimes from these non-governmental organizations. They're funded by them because they want, when Rogan or news or anybody calls to have a debate, they want someone on their side with their skewed view to be the one debating.
Then demolished Rogan's other guest, comedian turned pro-Palestine commentator Dave Smith, after he revealed he had never actually been to Israel, despite condemning them for the past 18 months.
I've been plenty of
There was
times.
no deficit?
No, there are
No
plenty
goods were
of,
kept out?
There are plenty. How many? Have you been to the crossing points?
No,
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been.
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now? I've never been to. Have you ever been to Nazi Germany? Are you allowed to have feelings about them?
You can't time travel, but you
Well,
can.
right.
But you can travel.
Okay, but so what? So what's the point? Like,
No,
okay.
I find that
Lots
very...
of people have been there and agree with me, and lots of people have been there and agree with you.
Yeah, but
so
if
I don't
you're
know
going
what
to
the.
spend...
I also believe a lot of people have leveled up their social media, their followings, because it is popular to be pro-Palestinian and to be able to just be on that negative rant and build up your audience, regardless if they believe it in or not. I mean, it's just been a lot of echo chamber.
The year and a half talking about a place, you should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
All right. I just think this is a non-argument.
You don't
but
think?
Okay. No, I think it's a non-argument.
But if you're an ex...
Well, you have to go and touch the ground to
No,
be
I
able
think
talk
you have
about
to
it?
see... I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you
okay.
spend a career talking about something. Yes.
Commentators were split on the exchange, with this person saying, "You totally missed the point, you muppet." He is purporting himself an expert on what is happening now, but has not even made any effort to be there and find out, unlike Douglas Murray, who has. This person disagrees, saying, "This is a low blow from Douglas. He's struggling to get him on actual points, so he tries to belittle his authority with his non-argument. Bad faith from Murray." Philosopher Sam Harris also weighed in and agreed with Douglas Murray, saying Joe Rogan has good intentions but is out of his depth.
Joe is a genuinely good guy who wants good things for people, but he is honestly in over his head on so many topics of great consequence, right? When he brings someone on to just shoot the shit about, you know, how the Holocaust is not what you think it was, right? Or, and, you know, maybe Churchill's the bad guy in World War II.
Is that Tucker?
Or he's got Dave Smith, you know, being treated as an expert on Israel and Palestine and the history of that conflict and the moral emergency that came to the world's attention on October 7th. And what is appropriate to think in the aftermath of all of that, right? Dave Smith is the only reason why anyone knows what Dave Smith thinks about any of this is very likely because Joe had him on multiple times to talk about it, right? You know, he's a pure misinformation artist, and you know, on top of many others. And when Joe talks to someone like Trump or Tucker Carlson or you know, any of these other guys who lie as freely as they breathe and doesn't push back against any of their lies. In fact, you know, in Trump's case, really fairly energetically helped put his lies into the most plausible possible shape. It is irresponsible. I mean, it is directly harmful. Our society is as politically shattered as it is in part because of how Joe has interacted with information.
Douglas Murray has been a vocal and passionate critic of Hamas since the devastating events.
You know, that's a double-edged sword. You can't be calling out all your guests on lies and getting super confrontational with them, or you're not going to have a show. So he has brought a ton of people, a ton of education to the masses. So I'm gonna stay positive on that and not say Joe is not doing his job. And he does call people out from time to time. I mean, obviously Joe Rogan has a formula that works well for him, and it's not like it's um being purported as fact and whatnot. It's getting people thinking about issues. So yeah, I don't necessarily agree with everything that guy had to say, but yeah, I mean, it is important to maybe do a little more research, because there are times where Joe Rogan, it just seems like he doesn't have any idea on the topic. But to each his own. Like, he's had a formula of keeping it pretty loose, and it is what it is.
Of October 7th, and continues to blame the terror group for escalating tensions in the region.
Well, it's sort of par for the course, unfortunately. Hamas has repeatedly broken its side of the deals in the stage one of the ceasefire agreement. We saw that not least in its obscene handover ceremonies of Israeli hostages.
And guys, the bottom line is, no matter what happens, Hamas is getting its money from Iran, and they have one goal and one goal only, is to just totally wipe out Israel. So it's going to be ugly. It's going to stay ugly. It's not like there's going to be some kumbaya moment to have everything all of a sudden back to some sort of normal peace, whatever. This has been building up for a long time. So anyway, I'll end it there. What do you guys think? Do we need more debate on and more arguments and more facts from the side talking about the Israeli perspective and what they're going through? And it also acknowledge this is war. It's war. It's not. Um, it's not like you just call a timeout in a war and then say which side is bad and which side is good. There's horrible death and destruction of both sides.